Omar Khayyam, the Nishapur-born polymath, astronomer, philosopher, mathematician, and poet of the Seljuk period, was bestowed with the title Hajat al-Haq due to his esteemed scholarly position. However, he is most renowned for his literary prowess and quatrains, which have been translated into several living languages worldwide, garnering widespread fame in Europe. While Khayyam's scholarly position surpasses his literary standing, his fame is indebted to the composition of his quatrains, which have gained worldwide renown. Despite Khayyam's quatrains being translated into more living languages, his fame in the West owes much to the translation of his quatrains into English by Edward Fitzgerald. In his youth, Khayyam devoted himself to the pursuit of knowledge and science, excelling in philosophy, astronomy, and mathematics. He also possessed skill in the field of medicine, reportedly curing Sultan Sanjar, who had contracted smallpox during childhood. While Khayyam is predominantly known as a poet, he was, in fact, a philosopher and mathematician who engaged with the works of Avicenna, translating one of his famous discourses on the unity of God into Persian. The first mention of Khayyam's poetry emerged a century after his death. He composed poetry in both Persian and Arabic and authored valuable books in various fields of science. During Khayyam's lifetime, significant events occurred, including the Crusades, the fall of the Buyid dynasty, and the rise of the Seljuk Empire. He spent most of his life in Nishapur, venturing out only twice, once for pilgrimage and the other to the cities of Ray and Bokhara. Khayyam possessed such skill in the field of astronomy that a group of astronomers collaborated with him in the construction of Sultan Malik Shah Seljuki's observatory. At the request of Sultan Malik Shah Seljuki, he decided to reform the calendar, which became known as the Jalali calendar. One of the famous Persian works attributed to Omar Khayyam is Risale-i Noraz Nami, which eloquently narrates the origin of Nowruz and its customs in the court of the Sassanid Empire with simple and graceful prose. In this treatise, he passionately discusses the grandeur of the ancient Iranian kings' cosmological rituals and the professions and knowledge that were their focus. Before the discovery of Khayyam's treatise in algebra, his fame in the Eastern lands stemmed from his reforms of the Iranian calendar, while in the West, it was due to the translation of his quatrains. Although Khayyam's works in mathematics, especially in algebra, were not directly utilized as primary sources among European mathematicians until the 19th century, one can trace Khayyam's influence through Tusi in the advancement of mathematics in Europe. The oldest known book that mentions Khayyam by name and is authored during his lifetime is Nizami Aruzi's, composed of 4 essays, but he mentions Khayyam among astronomers and does not cite any of his quatrains. Khayyam's poetry, in the form of quatrains, is short, simple, devoid of ostentatious displays of eloquence, yet laden with deep philosophical meanings, reflecting the thoughtful contemplations of a great thinker in the face of the grand mysteries of creation. The true number of Khayyam's quatrains is estimated to be around 70, but over the years, he has been attributed with more than a few thousand quatrains. In the global literary and artistic world, especially in English-speaking countries, Khayyam is the most renowned Iranian poet, whose fame transcends scientific and literary circles. This fame is owed to the translation of his quatrains by Edward Fitzgerald, an English poet. Khayyam, who in the 19th century introduced the grand thoughts of philosophy and poetry to the world, has garnered universal attention to this marvel of science and art. About 12 works of Khayyam in science and philosophy have survived, but even these few works have brought him fame throughout the world. One of the most important among them is his book of algebra, which is the finest work of its kind in mathematics. Khayyam's poems are mostly in Persian and Tatsi languages, and the main theme of his quatrains revolves around skepticism and wonder, attention to death and transience, and admonition regarding the appreciation of human life as brevity, are remarkably simple, unadorned, and free from the ornate language typical of poetry, while still being eloquent and profound. In these quatrains, Khayyam expresses his philosophical thoughts in the most beautiful manner. He mostly composed these quatrains following his philosophical contemplations, which is why he wasn't renowned as a poet during his time. Rather, he was known more as a sage and philosopher. However, later, when his charming and philosophical quatrains became evident, his name joined the ranks of poets who gained worldwide fame. Another characteristic evident in Khayyam's poems is their concise and weighty expression. He doesn't indulge in jest or humor, doesn't concern himself with trivial matters, as he is a thoughtful sage, not seeking to entertain. And when we examine his poems closely, we realize that his poetic thoughts are focused on 2 or 3 main themes, reminding us of death, lamenting the transience of life, and the unreliability of time. Among the great poets of Iran, few have achieved the level of worldwide renown that Khayyam has, as his poems have been translated into various languages. Contrary to common belief, Khayyam's lofty thoughts are not nihilistic. Rather, they are firmly rooted in appreciating the bounty of life in this world and abstaining from mere prejudiced judgments, shining a clear light on concepts such as respect for nature and avoiding self-centeredness based on ignorance. In the poetry of post-Khayyam poets and writers, these ideas have prominently emerged and flourished. Some Persian scholars believe that Khayyam's quatrains are a fresh approach to exposing the hypocrisy of deceitful ascetics. Khayyam portrays the world's unreliability and the transient nature of human existence in his poetry. His sharp and poignant language in his quatrains serves as a fresh critique of deceitful and hypocritical ascetics. Maurice Bousquet is a non-Iranian who has been deeply influenced by Khayyam's ideas, and his play Khayyam's Dream demonstrates his intellectual harmony with the Iranian poet. Additionally, Armand Renaud and André Gide have drawn inspiration from him. 2 Brazilian poets, Omar Khayyam Camargo, have poured Khayyam's thoughts into modern poetry, spreading their Spanish text across Latin America and their French text across Europe. Others who have been inspired by Khayyam or praised him include André Gide, Jean Lahier, Charles Grallo, Marc Bernard, and Jean Chapelain. Khayyam, in his verses, depicts the world's unreliability and the transient nature of human existence and life. His sharp and poignant language in his quatrains serves as a fresh critique of deceitful and hypocritical ascetics. Many literary and scientific researchers believe that Khayyam, years before famous scientists like Galileo and Copernicus, understood that planets revolve around the sun. In one of his quatrains, he writes, "The celestial sphere, which bewilders us so, we find lit with a lamp of illusion-esque glow. The sun, the lamp holder, the world, the lantern case, we, like pictures in it, round and round go." Edward Fitzgerald referred to his translations of Khayyam's verses as Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The significance of Khayyam's quatrains is such that Mark Twain also admired them. He revealed in his autobiography that he intended to base some of his works on a selection of Fitzgerald's translations of Khayyam's quatrains. During Twain's time, Fitzgerald's translation of Khayyam's work had gained immense popularity, as it embraced the spirit of destiny and determinism prevalent in the 19th century. The preface quatrain of Khayyam has been of great interest to researchers, and now Fitzgerald's translation of it reads, "In the world, inside and out, above and below, there is nothing but a magical shadow show. The candle of this magical shadow show is the sun, in which we are like imaginary figures, coming and going." Edward Byles Cowell, a friend and Persian language professor to Fitzgerald, published his own copy of Khayyam's quatrains in those same years and translated this phrase as follows: "The image of a lantern of illusion." This metaphor here is similar to shadow play, but originally refers to lantern of illusion. The first slide projector was invented in the late 16th century. Athanasius Kircher and Christian Huygens are known as the inventors of the magic lantern. It is famous that Kircher proved its principle in 1646 and Huygens, a scientist and theorist of light waves, created one of these magic lanterns in 1659, meaning long after this Khayyam verse. Before his death, Khayyam had foreseen the location of his own tomb. Namar, in a meeting he had with Khayyam, expressed this prophecy as follows: "My grave shall be in a place where every spring the north wind showers flowers upon me." For years after Khayyam's death, Namar went to the city of Nishapur and visited the tomb of this great poet. To his utter amazement, he saw that Khayyam's grave was exactly where he had predicted. Finally, the great poet bid farewell to the mortal world in the year 517 AH in the city of Nishapur.